Good evening, Hofstra fans, and welcome to our junior-produced episode of Sports Beat. I'm your host, Danny DeCrescenzo. We have an action-packed night for you, talking all things Brooklyn Nets, Hofstra Softball, and the recent hiring of Coach Speedy Claxton to the Hofstra men's basketball team. So don't go anywhere because Sports Beat starts right now. Thanks for tuning in tonight. Our Sports Beat panelists and my good friend JJ Beal had the opportunity to talk to Hofstra alum and former assistant coach Speedy Claxton after he was announced as the head coach of Hofstra men's basketball. Let's take a look.
I am here with NBA champion, two-time America East Player of the Year. He has his number 10 retired by the Hofstra Pride, and now he is the newest head men's basketball coach, none other than Speedy Claxton. Coach Claxton, thank you so much for taking the time, and how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. Looking forward to this. Should be fun here.
So, Coach, as I said in the beginning, you are now Coach Claxton. You've been an assistant coach, but what does it mean for you to be the head coach at your alma mater?
It means everything. This is what I envisioned when I signed my NLI here years ago, 20 years ago almost. Jeez, that sounds like a long time. But, I wanted to go to a program where they didn't have a huge basketball tradition because I wanted to go make a big name for myself because I knew ultimately I would want to come back there and lead that program. And that is exactly what I did.
So now, Coach, mentioning your playing career, you won an NBA championship with the San Antonio Spurs in 2003. So what experience can you take from your playing days and pass on to players now?
To give it all you have and seize the moment. You never know where this game of basketball can take you. So I would say every time you go out there, play hard and do the right thing on and off the court.
So speaking of players, college players across the country are starting to enter the transfer portal and declare for the draft. We've already seen coaches have success returning to the colleges where they played, such as Juwan Howard returning to Michigan. So how do you believe coaching at the school where you played will affect your own recruitment going forward?
Well, first off, when you coach at your alma mater, it makes the job mean more because you definitely want to see the program succeed. And, these kids look at that and, they come visit the university, the campus, and they see your pictures basically everywhere. So they know you mean well and you're a genuine person and that you care about them and the program.
So looking forward to next season, what are your goals for the team? And are there any conference games that you already have circled on your calendar?
Just to go out there, compete, play hard. And there's no game I specifically schedule. They're all going to mean a lot. It's my first time doing this thing. So every game, I'm going to just try to prepare my team as best as I can to go out there and win.
Now, Coach, I've seen you've been doing press all this week, and you've probably had to answer the same questions over and over. So I'm going to try and ask a question that you haven't heard all week. What is your go-to order at Jim's Deli?
Oh, wow, my go-to order at Jim's Deli. It depends on if I'm there for breakfast or lunch. If I'm there for breakfast, I'm going to have a bacon, egg, and cheese on a roll. If I'm there for lunch, I'm either going to have some wings or I'm going to have a turkey and cheese hero.
Bacon, egg, and cheese is one of my favorites too. So,
love it. Can't go wrong with that.
No, you can't. Coach, thank you so much for your time today. I know we will all be rooting for you this season, and I cannot wait until we can pack the MAC again.
Thank you. Appreciate it, and welcome to support.
I'm joined here with my panelists, Beau, Dragone, and Eddie Fitz. Guys, how are we doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Danny. I'm just excited to talk some sports.
Danny, I could not be more proud sitting from this position right now and watching you host your first ever Sports Beat. It's a real student has become the master, but he was actually a master all along type scenario. It's just, you're a phenomenal guy, and I cannot wait to get through this episode with you, man. It's going to be great.
Coming from you, Eddie, that means the world. But let's talk about Speedy Claxton. Since his high school days, Long Island lifer, he's a big part of the Hofstra community. What does his hiring mean for the Hofstra community?
2 words: community representation. Speedy was a Hofstra legend, and now he's continuing this legacy by leading this team, and I can't wait to see what he does. I mean, he brings leadership, brotherhood, he brings so many things to this team, and for a school that is majority population New York, Long Island, this is even better for this Hofstra men's basketball team.
There were big shoes to fill when Joe Mihalik goes and steps into a different role at Hofstra Athletics here. And the only way to replace a legend is with a person of equal legendary status, and that's exactly what Hofstra did. They said they were going nationwide, but they stuck home, stuck true to Hofstra, and made an absolutely terrific decision.
Of course, now Speedy Claxton's reputation basketball-wise precedes him. Started at Hofstra, carried him to the tournament. 10 years in the NBA, won a ring with the Spurs in 2003, worked as a scout for the Warriors for a year, and he worked as a Hofstra assistant since 2013. What is the top thing that Speedy brings to the table as the new head coach of Hofstra men's basketball?
Speedy brings experience. Like you said, Danny, 10 years in the NBA. That's awesome. He's played for 5 different teams, and he won a championship in 2003. That's already good enough, but he knows how to win games, and I think that is the most important thing for this team and for this coaching staff.
Number one thing, Danny, is consistency. This is somebody who's already been here. When you lose somebody like Mike Fairley to Penn State University, you need to have somebody to steady the ship for these players who have been here for 2+ years, 3+ seasons. And that's exactly what Speedy Claxton is going to do. He's going to carry the vision that him, Mihalik, and Fairley all set out to do last year.
Now, talking about Hofstra as a program, they've been ascending for the last couple of years. Of course, they made the tournament before COVID shut it all down. This shortened season, they had a little bit of a rough patch, 8-6 in conference play, 13-10 overall. Speedy's going to have to really get this team back to that upper echelon of those mid-majors. What's his top priority coming into next year?
His top priority is motivation, and he needs to make this a team, leadership. This team, motivation, they're losing so many people, so many good players, but Speedy, especially as a new head coach, he needs to show this team what he's all about and this new winning mentality for Hofstra.
It's got to be focusing on getting the full potential out of Caleb Burgess. He was the youngest player in that starting lineup, and he is instrumental. He's probably the most special player that we have at this program currently. The team is run through a point guard system, and that's exactly what Speedy's going to do. He's going to try to get the most out of his double-digit assist, double-digit point type of player in Caleb Burgess.
Now, I'm glad you mentioned that because with Hofstra, they're a very guard-heavy team, as is the CAA in general. You had Tariq Coburn, Jalen Ray really lead the team offensively. The only 2 bigs who really contributed and got big minutes, Isaac Conte and Kevon Kramer. And we know Speedy's specialty, of course, as an assistant was developing guards. So do you see Hofstra going towards more of even a heavier guard orientation? And if so, is that the better move?
I don't necessarily think he's going to do that right off the bat. He has a long time with these players right now in order to get a feel for their skills, get their game plan going, get in their head and really learn about these players and develop them as a team. So I don't think it'll necessarily be a guard-oriented team, but he's going to do what's best for this team no matter what.
Well, are they going to be a guard-oriented team? Most likely, because that's what the CAA is. It's a guard-oriented conference. The biggest name out of being a big man from the CAA has been Nathan Knight, and he's off currently playing in the G League out of William & Mary. But for Hofstra, they are a guard-centric team. They always have been, and they're going to run some forwards out there with them to try and get those rebounds. But for their zone, they always work with those guards, and that's exactly what they're going to do this time around as well.
Of course, and as you said, Burgess is going to be the future, trying to fill the shoes of 2 really good seniors who had a great campaign this past season. That's all the time we have for this discussion, but stay tuned for much more right here on Sports Beat. We'll be right back.
Wow, these are really good.
You act surprised. Practice makes perfect.
You don't have to be perfect to be a perfect parent. There are thousands of teens in foster care who don't need perfection. They need you.
And welcome back. Now we bring our attention to the Hofstra softball team. And guys, they've been very streaky. They have 2 streaks this season of winning 4 straight and 2 streaks this season losing 4 straight. What is behind this inconsistency?
a very streaky team right now, but I think it's all in the pitching staff. I think it's giving up homers specifically. If you look at the stats, almost every single game that they lost this season, they have given up a home run. And vice versa, every game that they've won, they haven't given up one. So it's not the obvious, giving up runs to lose a game. It's morale and motivation. I think that when this Hofstra team gives up the home run, it's difficult for them to rebound and get motivated to, come back, get some extra runs, start a rally. So I think the pitching staff is the anchor of this team, and that's behind the streaky play.
I think it's the inconsistent pitching from what we've seen on the mound so far from Hofstra this season. Almost all of their pitchers have over a 3.5 ERA, and in the CAA, that's not going to be great. And so in games that they lack run support, they lose. But on games that they're able to compete and go toe-to-toe with these teams and maybe even blow them out in some circumstances, that's when it gets better. And so there's give and take there.
Of course, and you both mentioned pitching woes. The one thing that hasn't been so bad this season for Hofstra is their hitting. They're 34th in the nation for batting average, 307. 6 players batting over 300, 2 batting over 4. And when they put up 7+, they've only lost once this season. So offense is very important. Who has been their best offensive player the first 2/3 of the season?
For me, it's JC Ruberti. She has a 391 average right now, and she has a team-leading 26 RBIs. She also has a team low 3 strikeouts, so that's huge. That shows that she's a team player, knows how to drive home runs, and get these rallies going. Any day of the week, I would take RBIs rather than average, so to see 26 RBIs is huge for me.
It's got to be my girl, Megan Giordano, the big power bat in the middle of this lineup. She's already smashed 16 home runs this year. Teams are afraid to pitch to her, and she will get on base no matter what. She's got a 900 OPS right now. Absolutely phenomenal work 2/3 way into the season from Megan.
Of course, Hofstra has some great bats, but so does the team they're going to play this weekend, Delaware, who bats .355. They're the leader in the CAA North, and Hofstra played them earlier in the year. They split 1-1, but it's going to be a tough series, guys, 3 games. What does Hofstra need to do to overcome their 4-game skid they're riding right now and compete?
I think it's pretty obvious. They have to win this series. They have to at least beat them 2-1, 2-out-of-1 games, or maybe they'll get the sweep. But that starts in the pitching staff. As we said earlier, the pitching staff could be the anchor of this team if they are on point. Delaware has a tough lineup, a very tough lineup, and for the pitchers to not give up any home runs, I think that could be a potential 3-game win.
Listen, the bats have got to come out. When you're going up against the top team in the CAA, you need to be expected to put at least 7 to 10 to 15 hits on the board at any given time. That's what Hofstra's going to have to do. They're going to have to go toe-to-toe. It's not going to be a battle of the pitchers' duels as they go out there on the mound. It's going to be a battle of the bats, Danny.
Of course, they want to come out hot and get hot on the bats. But listen, the CAA North, very tough. The top 2 teams, Drexel and, of course, Delaware, they're both 4-2 in the conference, and Hofstra is 4-4. They're third. Where's Hofstra going to finish in such a cutthroat division?
In my opinion, I don't think Hofstra's moving, and I don't think the rest of the division is moving either. I think it's going to be Delaware first, Drexel second, Hofstra third, and then Towson last. Hofstra has a tough schedule coming up, and Towson, I don't see moving past them, but I don't see Hofstra moving past Drexel or Delaware.
Yeah, I agree. I have them third, and pretty much for all the same reasons that Beau said. The top 2 teams are at the top, and Hofstra right now is a growing team with a lot of growing pains, and that's going to come with some inconsistent seasons and double-digit wins, double-digit losses type feel.
Of course, and we all hope that they can get them going and have that dream game against Delaware, as you mentioned, Eddie. But let's move on to my favorite sport, basketball, my favorite league, the NBA, and my favorite team, the Lakers, who were able to beat the Brooklyn Nets, of course, from the local area, 126-101. Andre Drummond had 20 points and 11 rebounds. Obviously, that made me very happy. But to Nets fans, it was a little concerning because Drummond, right, he bullied LaMarcus Aldridge all game long. Do the Nets have an Achilles heel when it comes to their interior defense?
The answer is yes, definitely. You have to find a balance with this team, offense and defense. You can have as many offensive good players as you have, as we already have, James Harden, Blake Griffin, Kyrie, KD. There's so many good offensive players, but in order to win games right now, offense is at an all-time high in the NBA. I mean, it's fun to watch, but a defense will really win you games in the Nets, especially in the postseason. They're going to need this defense.
Is it a problem? Yeah, Danny, it is. But is it an Achilles heel you're describing? No. 3 points are worth more than 2, and the Nets have some of the best three-point shooters in the league. You got Joey, Buckets Harris, you've got Kyrie, you've got James, you've got KD. And when it gets to playoff time, and the games are close and defenses tighten up, Kevin Durant, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving can all be really good on-ball lockdown defenders. I have no problem with them holding down wings that they're going to see in the playoffs, and they're not really going to go up against a big other than Joel Embiid and Giannis.
Of course, although I will say that Joel Embiid adds a complete other dimension to the game because he can shoot from the outside, as you, Sixers fan, know very well. But with the Nets, Durant has returned from his injury, and he's Kevin Durant, 70 points in 70 minutes. And when they get Harden back, and there are even reports they're going to get Dinwiddie back before the playoffs, it's very hard to see this team not in the finals. And there's a lot of teams out west that could potentially challenge them. You have the new-look Suns, the Jazz who've been the surprise of the season, of course my bruised Lakers, and even the Clippers who look pretty steady so far. Which of those teams match up best with the best of the East?
For me, it's the last team you mentioned, the other LA team, the Clippers. Right now, for them, it's title or bust, and I think we all know that. They have Kawhi Leonard and Paul George. They need to shut down this Nets offense, and if they can get James Harden to pass, he's not particularly good in the postseason anyway, so if he can pass instead of shoot, that would be amazing for this Clippers team, and I think that's how they win the playoffs.
I know you're baiting me into saying that you want the Lakers to be the biggest competition, Danny, but they're the reigning NBA champions. They have all the credit in the world in the national stage and all that. The Utah Jazz would be really fun to see play the Brooklyn Nets because they shoot the most threes in the Western Conference and almost in the entire NBA, and they make the most threes in almost all of the NBA. And they are one of the best teams defensively as well. They got great wing, guard, and center defensive players, and with the likes of Rudy Gobert. And they can also beat you with different players. It's not necessarily that they need Mike Conley or Donovan Mitchell to go off every single night. They can get a 30-point game from Joe Harris in a playoff game, and that would win them the game alone. And for Brooklyn, they're going to need James, KD, and Kyrie to step up every single night if they're gonna want to win a championship and be competitive come postseason.
Of course, and I think you make both good points. I mean, the Clippers look really well this year, and the Jazz obviously stunning everyone with their run atop the West. I just hope my bruised Lakers can get AD. I'm a fan. What am I going to say? The viewers know. I hope they come back. But my last question for you guys about Brooklyn is all about Kyrie Irving, right? Kyrie Irving, his best season since his career in Cleveland, honestly, is happening right now in Brooklyn. A lot of news about him has been personal, his absences from play, his recent conversion to Islam, breaking headlines recently. But this year, it looks like Kyrie is being, Kyrie, and he's playing the game the way he wants to play it, in the city he wants to play it in. And it's a very stark departure from who he was with the Boston Celtics. So my question to you, and I really want you to go in depth with this, has this season made you rethink your view on Kyrie Irving?
Kyrie Irving, well, I don't know if it has necessarily made me rethink. I think it has at some points, but right now, looking at the stats specifically, he has career-high averages in most categories, if not all. So his game is coming to play. But there have been many personal issues, as you have mentioned. So it's more of a leadership and commitment issue deal right now with this team. And they're going to need this man, Kyrie Irving, in the playoffs in order to win.
Well, listen, yes, this has made me rethink a little bit on Kyrie. In fact, it's even made me think less of Kyrie Irving this time around. We saw him in Cleveland, and he hit that shot against the Warriors, and it won them that chip. And that's amazing. And when Kyrie is able to do that and play that way, he's going to be one of the best players on the court at any given time. But then he left Cleveland, and he went to Boston. And that experiment failed horribly. He was lampooned by the fans and the players, and he clearly was not a great fit. So now he's in Brooklyn, and last season didn't have KD, and they struggled. And it's become clear to me, as well as the rest of the NBA, that Kyrie Irving can only succeed when he's the second or third option. Is he a great player? Yes. Is he the best player on your championship team? A leader for your team? He's proven that he's not this season, Danny.
Of course, I agree with you 100%. I thought the way LeBron used him in Cleveland was peak Kyrie. I mean, we all know how special he was in 2016. But moving on to the other basketball team in New York, the Knicks, 28-27 right now. They're playing right now, actually, against the Pelicans. And they've got the 8th seed, and if they keep it, they're probably going to play Boston in the playoff tournament to decide who goes to the postseason. So fill in the blank for me, fellas. The Knicks have a blank % chance of making it to the playoffs.
In my opinion, I think the Knicks have a 60% chance. I'm not going to give them the 50. I'm going to give them a 60 right now. They've beat a couple good teams so far this season, and they're keeping a above 500 record, but they still have a very tough schedule to go. And if they can win those games, they'll have a good chance, but I don't know if they'll win all those games.
I give the Knicks close to 95 to 100% chance to make the playoffs. I know that sounds brash, and I know it's a hot take, Danny, but hear me out. There is a reason why the Knicks are performing so well, and it's Tom Thibodeau. And if anybody is going to get the most out of his players, we saw the Mitchell Robinson injury, and that's going to hurt dramatically. But if anybody is going to figure out how to use veteran players to the best of their ability, it is the New York Knickerbockers, and it is going to be Tom Thibodeau. They are a really good team, and they are hungry for trying to get to the postseason. They know that they can get there. They really, really want to get there, and I think that they are. They know that the city of New York really wants the Knicks to make the playoffs. Every Knicks fan for the last 5 years has wanted them to make the playoffs, and now they have the opportunity to do it. They're going to go out and get it, Danny.
Of course. I think they're going to play really hard. Thibs, of course, a defensive-minded coach. But one of their best defensive players, arguably the best defensive player on that roster, Mitchell Robinson, of course, went down. Do you think that injury is really going to start to rear its ugly head heading into the final stretch, especially if they draw Boston in the play-in?
Oh, definitely. I mean, teams get tired at the end of the season, especially so many games. You know, Mitchell Robinson, as you said, he's a defensive anchor for this team. And only winning by, like 10 points, winning and losing by 10 points every single game, that's tough for this Knicks team. And with Mitchell Robinson back, they can flip those losses into wins.
We'll be right back for our FaceTime discussions after this short break. Don't go anywhere.
You know what, guys? There's a lot of tree branches and dry brush over here. We should probably move the bonfire over there.
I'm guessing Smokey liked that idea.
Do you remember the Zion Williamson hype? When he was in high school, his dunks took over social media. His battle against LaMelo Ball in 2017 was the highest profile AAU game ever. Upon joining Duke, Williamson routinely made college players look like prepubescent boys with his 6'7", 284-pound frame. He carried the Blue Devils to an ACC title and a Sweet 16 appearance in 2019 before declaring for the draft, and when the Pelicans picked him up at number 1, he was lauded as the next LeBron James. And boy, is he making his case for that one already. A first-time All-Star this season, he's averaging 26 points and 7 rebounds a game while shooting 62% from the floor. A low-post menace, he combines overwhelming physicality with impeccable grace and touch. A week ago, Williamson tied Shaquille O'Neal's record of scoring 20-plus points on 50% shooting in 25 straight contests, making him one of the greatest finishers the league has ever seen and a member of the NBA's uppermost echelon. Unfortunately, the truly remarkable thing about Zion's ascension is the fact that so few people care. Riddled with the injury bug since his rookie year, he also plays in a small market for a struggling team and in a league known for a short memory media. Who knew that in a little more than a year, the most hyped phenom since LeBron will be yesterday's news behind Ja Morant, LaMelo Ball, the Brooklyn Nets, and a global pandemic? As my brother Tristan often reminds me, life moves pretty fast. If you don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it. I urge you to give Zion Williamson his due as, already, an NBA superstar. He will continue to meet and exceed our expectations for him, even if no one remembers them.
It only makes sense that the first no-hitter in San Diego Padres franchise history came from a kid who grew up watching them. The 28-year-old Joe Musgrove threw the first no-hitter of his career and of San Diego Padres history late Friday night. This magnificent time in Padres history occurred in Arlington, Texas at Globe Life Field, the only ballpark in the MLB that allows 100% capacity of fans to enter and watch the games. Musgrove grew up 20 miles away from Petco Park in El Cajon, California, and regularly attended games with his father since the team's start in 1969. As a recent addition to the team, The Padres had high expectations for the way Musgrove would perform, and it is easy to say, so far, so good. In only his second start for the Padres, Musgrove threw 9 shutout innings, giving up no hits, no runs, but 1 hit by pitch to the Texas Rangers slugger, Joey Gallo, which interrupted hopes for a perfect game. As he got higher into the pitch count, none of Musgrove's last 50 pitches of the game were straight fastballs, resorting to primarily breaking pitches and cut fastballs. This was not a solo effort, as catcher Victor Caratini was named the scientist behind the plate, as he also made history, becoming the first MLB catcher to catch consecutive no-hitters for different teams. In September of last year, Caratini also caught Alec Mills' no-hitter on the Cubs, meaning he has caught MLB's 2 most recent no-hitters. It is safe to say that Victor Caratini knew what he was doing and knew how to shut down a lineup for 9 innings. The Padres have had 31 hitters, but Joe Musgrove finally got the job done. To end the night, Musgrove went out by saying, quote, part of it doesn't seem real. It feels like it was meant to be. A truly magical and historic moment for the San Diego Padres.
Dear Commissioner Adam Silver, the way I see it, you will have 3 options. Apologize to the Philadelphia 76ers, Sam Hinkie, and the fan base. Force Thunder GM Sam Presti to resign, or resign yourself. Last weekend, the Sixers and the OKC Thunder squared off, and the Thunder starters included the likes of Darius Baisley and Theo Maledon. Star guard Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is sitting due to injury, and the team has decided not to play Al Horford in favor of much younger talent. Much like the 2013-2015 Sixers, who had Jakar Sampson, Henry Sims, and Hollis Thompson. Now, it's been widely documented that NBA organizations since 2014, when the Sixers won just 18 games, the teams lobbied the league to intervene in Philly. And you, Adam Silver, you were instrumental, quote, in getting Jerry Colangelo and Sixers owner Josh Harris together. Jerry was brought on, and then not soon after, Hinkie sends in a 13-page resignation letter to the team. And then Jerry gives his son, Brian Bernergate Colangelo, the keys to the team and then steps away? The Sixers added 26 picks/potential pick swaps in Hinkie's tenure. His years were marked as the process, and the city of Philly trusted in Hinkie, and the fan base was all in. And you, Commissioner Silver, took that away. According to Hinkie, the process had 3 key parts. Use those draft picks to draft deep pools of young NBA players. In free agency, maintain flexible cap space to acquire bad contracts and more picks and young pieces. And then trade for young pieces to help you win games for the future. OKC currently has 34 picks on their docket, a young developing core, and have acquired multiple big contract vets in exchange for young players and draft capital. They just haven't said that they're trying to lose. So, Commissioner, you have 3 options. Admit you got it wrong, bring in a nepotist to get rid of OKC GM Sam Presti, or resign from your position. As I remember, the sanctity of the game, the integrity of the league, was more important than autonomy. Rights to Rick Sanchez forever. I await your response, Dave.
You heard him, Adam Silver. That's going to wrap things up here on Sports Beat for tonight. I want to thank my panelists, Beau, Dragone, and Eddie Fitz for joining us. Don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Hofstra SB, and subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch all of our episodes and packages. Tune in on April 28th for our last episode of the semester, honoring our senior students who will be graduating in May. Until then, I'm Danny DeCrescenzo. Have a great night.